But the cool shot I took is this photograph right here. A little bit of thin clouds moved in at third contact. Here you had this, this nice diamond ring, but you should be able to easily see the striations. Everyone see these lines that are running perpendicular to or parallel to, see the lines?
Yeah.
Shadow bands. First time shadow bands have ever been imaged in the sky. So this is just, in fact, Don, several of us were looking at this Tippy at the Alpo conference last summer, and I popped up there and said, what do you guys think this is? I thought they were shadow bands, and Don got really excited, and we had to pour some water on them and calm them down. But you can see shadow bands. We never saw them visually. I was in the right place at the right time. If there hadn't been clouds, I probably would have never imaged it. But actually, shadow bands photographed across the sun. I guess this image was good enough it made Astronomy and the cover of the Alpo journal. So it was a fun photograph to take in Easter Island, except for the crazy. Can you imagine? Okay, I actually came to see the eclipse. These guys who are watching the World Cup came to see the eclipse, and they're watching the. Never mind. If you understand that one, explain it to me, okay?
Beer.
Not enough beer. Not enough beer. In 2009, we went to Maracay, which is a island of Kiribati. It used to be called the Gilbert Islands. And I've never been in a place in eclipse. There's only 2,000 people on the island. They all came out to greet us, including the elders of the island. They dressed up to come greet us, eclipse chasers. And, it was just something special. This was an island that did not have a McDonald's. Can you imagine? No McDonald's. I know, oh my God, but they just seem to be the nicest folks that I've really met worldwide. The eclipse itself, you can see again, we just escaped the clouds, and this is a fisheye shot I took of totality itself, and a little higher magnification of right at third contact, where you're just starting to have the diamond ring begin to form. 2005, we traveled to, this is one thing you got to understand about eclipses. The thing that's nice about total solar eclipses, you get to travel the world, usually. This was off of Tahiti, and life is hard, I know, but sometimes you have to do these, you have to make these sacrifices. This is actually taken by 4 people. Carter Roberts, myself, and Jen Winter, and Fred Brunges. And the image was stacked, so you get an idea. It was a hybrid eclipse, so a very, very shallow chromosphere, which is pretty rare. Venus. It's kind of a cool shot. You got totally eclipsed sun with a chromosphere, really nice streamers, and Venus. And, it's funny, with this eclipse also, we were completely clouded out. It was just completely clouded out, and we were on a cruise ship, and the captain swung the cruise ship around. There was, I kid you not, one hole in the clouds. We saw the eclipse, it clouded up and started raining. Knock on wood, whatever, it's one of those, I'm in the right place at the right time. This is from the old photographic days. This is the 2001 eclipse in Zambia, near Chisamba, and I took 10 images on Ektachrome film, that film we used to use, and then stacked it in Photoshop to give you that full dynamic range of totality. So, not a bad shot. I used to chase grazing occultations a lot. When I was in college, if there was a graze anywhere within the United States, I think I tried to hit the graze. And there was really a nice graze of the Pleiades in Woodbine, Georgia. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of Woodbine, Georgia, but it's an interesting part of southeast Georgia. So we're setting up our telescopes, and along comes a man and gets out. He says, "This is where we're meeting." And I'm thinking, "What are you talking about?" He said, "This is where we're meeting, the Klan meeting." He thought we were part of the Ku Klux Klan, and we're meeting there with our, I don't know what he thought these telescope things were. So, talk about scary events. Now, I've set up on railroad tracks for grazes, had trains come by, but this was probably the scariest. So let me talk about upcoming attractions for total solar eclipses. I just like to mention this. I think it's a good thing for you to know. These are charts that are prepared by NASA Goddard, primarily by Fred Espenek, Mr. Eclipse. And these are showing your annular and hybrid eclipses that are coming up over the next period of time from 2001 to 2025. The one I was telling you about that I hit, that I got that magnificent, all four of us got that shot, was this hybrid. And we have some hybrids coming up we'll have an opportunity to see. But let's get to the exciting stuff. Let's get to the total solar eclipses, because there's three in particular I'm going to talk about. And these are the totals upcoming. And as you can see, X marks the spot. Get it? X. 2017, 2024. Got to hang on that long. 2017, 2024. Those two eclipses right there are the next major eclipses for the United States. But before then, there are some of us who are going to be heading next year to Australia. And this should be a nice sunrise eclipse. And what this particular simulation shows is it shows obviously daylight. That's the, and then here's the penumbra and the umbra where totality will occur. And so lava is going to be setting up right here for next year's total solar eclipse. But let's take a look at those two. They're going to race across the United States. This is August 21st, 2017, and passes a little bit north of Nashville and over to Charleston, South Carolina, and races off the coast. The beauty of this eclipse, even though it is in monsoon season, is, we'll have a pretty good opportunity to go across the continent to find clear skies. So that's the first one. That's 2017. And 2017 will be here before we know it. As we all know, time does have a tendency to move on. The other one, the 2024 eclipse, is very similar to the March 7th, 1970 eclipse. In fact, it's the same Saros cycle, simply a little bit further north. You can see it cuts across like so. Again, makes that X. I think it's in Indiana. There's a town that gets both eclipses. Partial, the gray, total, the black. So, upcoming events, good one to keep in mind. It's one of those things you put on your bucket list, I think. I have to talk a little bit about this is astrology, some of the crazy things that have come through eclipses over the years. The Chinese term for an eclipse is Qi, C-H-I-H, which means to eat. They thought the dragon was eating the sun. The Chaldeans believed that an eclipse was a display of the moon's anger. That was their theory. Babylonians determined which quadrant the eclipse occurred and figured that's the area was going to have the biggest disaster, because they thought eclipses were signs of bad things to come. However, our friend Columbus used the total lunar eclipse in 1504 to convince the Jamaican natives that they need to supply him with food and other necessities. Columbus was running out of food, running out of supplies. His crew was in trouble. He knew there was a total lunar eclipse coming up, told the Jamaicans, either you feed us or I'm going to make the moon go away. Moon started disappearing. They start bringing food. And he says, okay, you got to make sure now. You keep on doing this when we want it, and I'll make it come back. Back came the moon. So kind of a sly guy, wasn't he? I've often asked Fred Espenek about his predictions. Are they really accurate? These two Chinese astronomers, Si and Ho, part of their job was predict eclipses. They failed to predict an eclipse and they lost their heads for that. So it's kind of a rough job back then. All right, so today, you think those things are crazy. Today, there's several things I'm going to talk about. Then I'll talk about the United States. So I'm going to make sure you hear about what we do. In the world, it's often common to make noise to frighten away what's attacking the sun or the moon. Are there diseases caused by an eclipse? In Japan, some people cover wells because they're afraid of celestial poisoning. some Inuits turned utensils over so they don't become contaminated. In India, some people lock themselves inside so they're not attacked by the evil rays. And I've been to a number of parts of the world for total solar eclipses where pregnant women are not allowed to come outside during totality, during the eclipse, because they don't want the pregnancy, the baby, to be affected in any way. Now, that sounds okay. Those are crazy heathens. They don't know anything. How about us? Talk about, is this astrology? 1979 total solar eclipse that ran across like Washington State on up into Canada. A woman called a radio station and wanted to know if she needed those eclipse glasses to watch the eclipse on TV. But this one's the best one. Our friend Jose Oliveros, so I'll talk about Jose at the end. Jose was the planetarium director at the time in Wichita. And a woman called to ask him if it was okay to let her dog go outside. She didn't want her dog to look at the eclipse and go blind. Now, well, of course, there is an answer for that. You get the dog eclipse glasses. Come on. You know, you got to make sure the little dog can look at the eclipse whenever he wants to, and he's getting ready to look through his telescope. So, what else can I say? Some questions I've been asked. I know we've all been asked some of these questions. So let's just go through some of these. And my favorite is this one. Do you see fairies with your telescope? I'm not sure it's not the fairy they were talking about, Don, but at the 2009 eclipse, I had this very pleasant Australian woman come up to me, and she knew I was an astronomer, and she asked me, she just came out and she said, do you see fairies with your telescope? Now, how do you answer that? And my answer, I finally thought, what am I going to say? You fool! But I said, my telescopes are not powerful enough to see fairies. However, these are the astronomy clubs in Australia you should contact and ask them. Everybody's asked about aliens. I've been asked, have I talked to aliens? My answer was, yeah, I'm talking to one now. But when I was at Chabot in California, I used to always have it's in California, number one, and the Bay Area, number two, and I had some odd questions along this line, but people, they were serious. Have you talked to the aliens? You know, we're still looking for intelligent life on Earth. The one I always hear, even as a teacher still, did we really go to the moon? I'm so tired of hearing that question. It's like astrology. We all get the astrology question. But, it's like, get a grip. Yes, they do believe everything you read. And my favorite question of all, how do you go potty in space? Now, as a finalist in the Teaching Space Project, I got an opportunity to travel the country for a couple of years and talk. Actually, I gave 1,000 talks in 2 years. And I was always asked that question, except one time, every other time, have you ever had a little say kindergarten kid raise his hand and say, Mister, how do you tinkle in space? Very carefully. So I kind of call this piece flying the Blackboard shuttle. And NASA in the future, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And again, I was very, very fortunate to be a part of the NASA Teacher in Space program. In my thinner day. Today it would take an extra rocket booster or two to get my big butt in orbit, but that's okay. In those days it was really pretty special, and we got a chance to do a lot of training, including how to use the bathroom in space. And this is a story I've told over the years on occasion, and I guess I'll go ahead and tell this story now. We were training, and it was in Houston. And how to live in space, how do you eat, how do you brush your teeth, how do you sleep, all those things. And of course, how do you go to the bathroom? They don't call it a toilet, they call it the waste collection system. And they gave us some, fundamental, bathroom talk. They said, now we're going to take you and train you how to do this. So they took us to an area within Johnson Space Center called the Moon Room. That's its name. And basically it's a little 12 by 12 room. And each person goes into the moon room individually. And so you go in and you close the door, And sitting there is this toilet-looking thing, very futuristic. And hanging from the ceiling is a television set. And I'm thinking to myself, like, am I going to watch Star Trek, or what am I doing? I'm here practicing. The idea is you're supposed to sit down on the WCS and just get a feel for how it worked. So I sat down and looked up at the television set and discovered there was a camera inside the WCS looking up. I'm staring at this on the screen thinking, oh my God, this is going to be on CBS Night. Damn, rather reporting live for the launch in space center where our teachers in space are practicing to go into space. The idea is the opening in the toilet is very, very small, only about 4 inches diameter, and you're supposed to scoot yourself back and forth until, I promise you, this is what the NASA training manual says, until you achieve a bullseye. You're collimating the toilet. That's what you're doing. The bullseye nebula. We could think of other names for that, couldn't we? So anyway, it was quite an experience if I don't trip over this cord and kill myself here. Okay, we're not going to do that. All right. One other story with the, and this is for you, Tippy. Space don't affect me. I in all these talks, most of the students I had were very respectful and really wanted to hear what I had to say. But I had one young man who had a boom box on his shoulder. He's like maybe an 8th grader. Had a boom box on his shoulder. He wasn't playing it. At least he had it turned off. And I start saying, you know, how much the space program, the spinoffs, have affected all of us. And he says, space don't affect me. And so I immediately went into that particular lingo and started talking about how space, and that boom box sitting on his, and his rest of his classmates are just howling, laughing at this guy by now. So we've always had this little comment, space don't affect me, but it does affect them, whether they want to admit it or not. You know, you talk about sad days in the history of our space program. It's hard to believe. December 14, 1972 is when Apollo 17 astronauts left the moon's surface and came back to Earth, and we haven't been there since. And you think about, this is my only political part of all this. You can agree with me or disagree with me, I don't care, but I'm going to say it anyway. John Kennedy, who was a Democrat, committed the country to going to the moon and returning people safely back to the Earth. And he also said, one of my favorite quotes is, we choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And you got to wonder what's happened to that resolve in this country. And it's kind of sad as we watch the end of the shuttle era. But you think about it, 12 men, 6 missions walked on the moon. The last time we were there was 1972. You think about how many years ago that was, and we haven't been back. It's just very, very sad in a sense to see that. So my question, what's our space program now? You know, with the dismantling the shuttle, we now Wile E. Coyote flying Acme rockets. In a sense, that's what we're doing because we're buying spacecraft from the Russians, and I won't linger any longer on this.
One thing I have to say, Mike, about that is that it was really Lyndon B. Johnson that really pushed Kennedy to go to the moon.
Well, there are other people besides.
He didn't care about it. He didn't give two rats after.
There were other people besides Johnson, because Johnson's interest, of course, went back to when he was a senator from Texas. But you still had to have a president who was going to say, we're going to do this. And whether Kennedy cared about it or not, the main point is he at least cared enough about it to say, we are going to do this. And, you know, I'm just saying that.
And it actually goes back a little bit further. It goes back to Eisenhower's day.
Well, actually, Eisenhower was not a proponent of the space program. Eisenhower was not a proponent of the space program. The von Braun team had a rocket ready to fly a satellite as early as 1955, and were told no by President Eisenhower as he didn't want to hack off the Russians. And so the Russians, of course, and it's probably a good thing it all happened like it did, because I'm not sure if we'd launched first, how we would have followed up after that. So this is another conversation for another time. I think my main point here is simply, regardless historically, we did it, and now we're walking away from it. And that to me seems to be kind of a sad thing. So are you smarter than a fifth grader? And probably most of you will get this one. The following question was asked one of the competitors on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And this was his last question to win $1 million. He'd gotten everything else right. His question was, what was the name of the United States' first successful satellite launched in 1958? His answer was Mercury 1. Lost $1 million. And of course, as someone said, it's Explorer 1. This is a photograph, by the way, that's on the NASA side, it's Explorer 1, and it's not. Because this is a daytime launch. Explorer 1 was launched at night. A little trivia there, but I've been very fortunate in having covered a number of shuttle launches at the Kennedy Space Center. This is from the press site, and believe it or not, what I used to shoot this with was I think I used my Explorer Apo, 80 millimeter Apo, and it's, as you can see, a fairly decent shot. At the press site, you can get some really magnificent images. And then the last night launch of the shuttle, which, again, very spectacular. And, if you've never seen a launch, you've got a couple more to go. Try to get to the Cape, at least the Titusville, Cocoa Beach area, to see a launch. It's pretty spectacular. As I kind of close up here, getting into popularizing astronomy opportunities, I've been very involved, and this is probably odd again for someone who's, quote, a professional astronomer, unquote, with outreaches. I think it's just so important to give people an opportunity to know why we're so crazy about all this stuff. And the League's Outreach Awards, the Astronomy Outreach Astro Oscars, Tippy and I, Terry Mann, Scott Roberts, Steve Edberg are on the board that make those presentations each year at the Winter Star Party, and this year we'll be presenting our Astro Oscars again. I had the greatest opportunity to serve as the executive director of the Chabot Space and Science Center in Oakland, California, where we built and opened a brand new facility. And, it's just a magnificent facility, and great times there. And I got to meet some good people, some of which I'll reflect on in just a moment. But also, it was interesting, some of the people I got to meet there were folks like Tom Hanks. Hanks got interested in space by going to Chabot as a kid. And you talk about what an effect public observatories and amateurs have upon people. Tom Hanks got interested in space going to Chabot and stayed in contact with Chabot. And I remember one Saturday I was up there. I got a chance to meet and take him through and such that. And one Saturday he was going to stop by, and I got this phone call, and I thought it was the folks at my front desk, and the woman said, yes, hold on just a moment for Tom Hanks. I said, yeah, sure, right. And it was Tom Hanks. And John Glenn, his wife Annie, got a chance to take them through William Shatner. But it's interesting how folks like Tom Hanks were affected by us as amateurs.
And one of those is named after you, buddy.
Yeah, that's the toilet. Here, I'll show it to you, the one on the left. See that? No. Actually, Tippy's right. I wasn't going to say that, but you already said. This observatory here has been named the Michael D. Reynolds Observatory. I said, name a urinal after me. At least, if people have a place to go. But I'm not dead yet, so I won't name it after me. But yeah, that's the Michael D. Reynolds Observatory.
That's a hell of a facility out there.
It is a really nice facility. And if you haven't been there, try to get there. I think you would really enjoy it. One of the fun things about Chabot is before we opened a new facility, we got a chance to market it. So we had some billboards we designed. These did not make it. These were real billboards, but these did not make it. Catch Oakland's real moonbeam. Now you may remember or recall that Jerry Brown was the mayor of Oakland at this time. They called him Mayor Moonbeam as he'd been called Governor Moonbeam. So catch Oakland's real moonbeam. His spiritual advisor, Jock, would not go for this. We have a 36-inch, do you? That one didn't make it either. I don't know why. Oh, wait. Okay, well. And recently I've had a chance, besides writing for Astronomy, to do some work for Discovery Channel. And And for National Geographic, I just did a shoot last month for Auction Kings for Discovery Channel where I was analyzing this particular antique telescope, and did a shoot recently for National Geographic on the sinking of Atlantis. The theory was that a big meteor, quote unquote, I hate that, a big meteorite hit and sunk the island. And the problem with that is there's no evidence like iridium or shot quartz or anything like that that shows it would have happened. And I've had a chance to do some writing, which is always fun. And my writing's been mostly of the general type of writing, binocular stargazing, falling stars, observe eclipses. Yeah, well, that's another joke. Operators are standing by calling now. One of these days I'll get another meteorite book out for Perry, and I'm working with Michael Bakich on a possible project for another college book. But that's been fun. See, he wants me to stand by. I'm pushing the button. Stand by, stand by. And one thing I would just want to close up with, because if I have to encourage you with anything, it's mainly spend time with the people around you. Spend time with your friends, and spend time with those who have the likes you do, and like astronomy, and obviously family. This last year, we lost Jack Horkheimer, who for me in the planetarium field was always a real encouragement. Jack was just a very rare individual. And I can remember one American Astronomical Society meeting where held in Miami, and the closing banquet, Jack was the speaker. I can remember these professionals, see me quote, quote, professionals saying, oh, come on, we're going to listen to this theater guy talk to us about astronomy. Friends, within 5 minutes, Jack Horkheimer had those professionals in his hands, and they were mesmerized for 90 minutes as Jack talked. Very rare individual, and one we'll miss. Jose Oliveras, I think about Jose and the excellent planetary observer he was. Bill Douglas, Southern Cross Astronomical Society. Richard Sweetser, who a number of you knew. There's been a lot of people who've gone before. So my point here is I kind of capture all these fun things I've gotten to do, and each of you have those things. Spend time with your friends. That's maybe the most important thing, because, you just never know. You never know. With that, I've got about 2 minutes for questions or comments or what's filmed. It's the stuff that's left on Windows. Any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. And this is the first of the trifecta. I mean, you're in for the Mikey, Don, and Tippy show today. So
continuing with the toilet theme, my name is Gas Bryant.
Well, speaking of toilet theme,
Yes.
since we're talking about toilet themes, one of the coolest posters I made at Chabot. So, how do you go to the bathroom in space?
Go to the store party.
That's right. And so there is a poster we made. My vision was we would put this up in the bathroom stalls. I mean, it's a museum. Why not educate people how you do this sort of thing? So that's what the WCS, the waste collection system, looks like. And that's where you fashion yourself into. And gentlemen, there's the...
Got any photographs?
If I showed you, if I showed a photo, that would appear on Facebook so fast that... I was right on target, let me put it like that. The mission was nominal. All right, well, I'm going to shut down and let Don take over here and set himself up.